and welcome to the special transmission of the SCO Summit 2024, which of course Pakistan is hosting, and a very important and integral summit this is. And of course also in terms of the kind of discussions that are going to of course transpire, and what aspects of this particular summit that we want to actually discuss and focus on will be part of the show today. Of course, Pakistan is hosting this 2-day summit, and it's going to be very, very important in terms of the participation by the prime ministers of many countries, including representatives of other member states as well, who have joined us in Pakistan. And of course, the Prime Minister is going to be heading this very important summit with the heads of government of the SCO member states, which is a very important multilateral platform, particularly when we talk about regional peace and security, and in the ways that we can explore economic prosperity as well. This is going to be one of the key aspects of this particular discussion, as well as we explore what aspects we can actually look into, and what is it that Pakistan can also do as the lead in terms of this particular SCO summit, and then also in terms of its position in the larger region. We've of course had our own bilateral engagements with many countries, but this multilateral forum presents in its own self an opportunity for Pakistan to be able to push forward its own stance within this region, and for increased collaboration between all of the member states to also flourish and continue to grow. We're of course going to be seeing the discussions and a very important aspect of this particular summit tomorrow, but we're also going to be talking about how the heads of the government of various countries, including representatives of other countries that have joined us in Pakistan, including the foreign minister of India and many others, including of course the prime ministers of countries like Russia and China, among others. And this is particularly important in terms of the collaboration that can exist between these key players and the kind of aspects that we hope to achieve on this front. Issues of course on the agenda include economic prosperity, security concerns in the region, also of course environmental challenges, many things which the entire region of course continues to face together, and for which a collective response will be helpful for all. There is also of course discussions around what sort of aspects in global future we can also take a look at in terms of a regional presence and a more consolidated partnership between these member states as we see the world continue to evolve, and of course in terms of what sort of influence Pakistan can also exert on this is something that will be part of the discussion today. So we're going to be taking a look at what this means particularly for Pakistan, and also in terms of the multilateral engagement that will follow. For this and more, as always, in the studios I have been joined by senior analyst Raja Faisal. We've also been joined online by Ms. Zoon, who's the senior analyst, and Colonel retired Shailendra Singh from India. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. And of course, we've also been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi, who unfortunately couldn't make it to the studio, but he's with us from his home. Thank you very much, Farrukh, for taking the time out and being part of the special transmission today. Let me start with you, Mr. Shailendra Singh, because it is very important, of course, to take your aspect into discussion as well, and we're very happy to have you as part of this particular transmission, and also of course India's participation in the summit. It is coming of course after a very, very long time, more than a decade that we have seen this representation, but it is a welcome and good sign that we have this representation and participation by India. But I want your take in terms of the perspective that you can also help us understand in terms of what the SCO means for India, and what does India's participation at this forum in Pakistan means for the country and its people, and how significant it is for the people and the government of India.
Jai Hind, Namaskar and Adab. Thank you very much, Sana, for putting us on your show and giving us opportunity to contribute whatever we think in India as far as SCO is concerned. Congratulations, Pakistan. Great of Pakistan people to host this function. There were whatever little doubts on security concerns, which always will be there for such programs anywhere in the world. But yes, finally, you have arrived and you are hosting it. Congrats, and a big congrats to the Pakistan. Now, as far as India's view on SCO is concerned, India has always been an active participant, a very contributory participant for any of such functions, wherever they take place. Especially now in Pakistan, when it is taking place, it has got much more meaning. Firstly, there were always doubts India may not take part. India is taking part. There were always doubts whether somebody will visit Pakistan or not. Indian foreign minister is very much there in Pakistan. That itself shows that differences can be there, We can always agree to disagree. But when it comes to regional development, regional, prosperity, India would never like to be against Pakistan or any country in the region or even any country in the world. We can have our views. We can always, be very, very erratic in our views at times against a particular country or many more countries or policies. But yes, India views always every time that when it comes to development in world, regional development, peace and prosperity, it is our human right, and so it is a human right for everybody in the world.
Absolutely, and I'm glad that you have these sentiments, Colonel Shailendra Singh, and of course, in terms of what you're representing India and of course the participation, and we'll talk more about this as we continue the discussion. But Ms. Zoon, I want your perspective also in general in terms of the way that Pakistan, of course, is hosting this very important summit. Firstly, of course, in terms of the participation that we've seen prime ministers from various countries coming in, representatives such as that of India and others also coming in and attending the summit, and the fact that this is a very important multilateral platform for this entire region. So I want to take both on the significance of this meeting of the SCO Summit, and also in terms of how significant and important and how lucrative it is going to be for Pakistan to be hosting this.
Thank you, Sana, so much for having me on the program. And I think I do resonate the enthusiasm, and also to some extent, I think it's mutual optimism as well that we in the region can have with the kind of presence and participation that we are seeing with the summit. I myself have been based in Beijing, where the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Secretariat is. And in the last 9 years, I've seen increasingly that the membership of both Pakistan and India, and now with obviously the inclusion of Belarus, Iran, new members, 10 members in total, and expanding dialogue partners, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization has become really a platform to discuss issues from security, from strategy, connectivity, increasingly towards, climate change, technological transfer. So this is really an organization that is redefining how Eurasian countries can look at each other, how different challenges can be tackled, and also, that link between security, safety, and economy and prosperity. All of the countries, firstly, giving an overview of what the SCO means to me, we call often, the Shanghai spirit is what gears, what's leading that mutual sentiment. And it's a very important sentiment to have for countries that have faced various challenges. So that said, I think the fact that the SCO is becoming increasingly prominent and looked at by the world as an organization that can provide solutions in a region that has needed solutions and still does. I'll also quickly add that, as you mentioned, we have so many prime ministers. Most of the prime ministers are there. India has sent the external affairs minister, and Iran also the deputy prime minister or someone, if I'm not mistaken. So this is a very positive participation. Premier Li Qiang, obviously here China, Pakistan is also very important for the equation. He is coming directly from the ASEAN summit, and ASEAN is also an observer, of SCO. So we are looking at how multilateralism in the Asian region is what is the major headline of the world today. That said, for Pakistan, this is obviously a great achievement. This is the first time that Pakistan is hosting the Heads of Government Summit. And as we had, earlier this year, it was the Astana Declaration, where 20 plus cooperation agreements were signed. So the mandate of the SCO is, consistent to the initial goals, which is safety, security, and development, but expanding towards more sophisticated conversations, such as how can we tackle climate change? How can we address poverty alleviation? How can we make governance more efficient? How can we provide investment opportunities, people-to-people cultural interactions within the region to first, also create a sense of common existence. I think this is something that the SCO is achieving very rapidly. And Pakistan hosting this meeting with 900 plus delegates in Islamabad is going to result in more progress on that front. So I'm very optimistic. I think this is a positive development. As someone who's been closely interacting with and looking at the SCO since 2017, in particular when we became members, this is a big day for Pakistan, Islamabad, and I'd say the SCO at large.
Absolutely, and of course that is this spirit over here in the capital as well, and we'll be discussing what sort of issues, of course, can come into discussion and the potential aspects that we would like to see after the summit as well. I'll come back to you, Ms. Zoon, but Faisal, I want your take also in terms of what is happening right now, and as was discussed, we have a huge number of foreign delegates, of course, many prime ministers, representatives of different countries who are here, and this region is very, very important. We have important representation from the SCO that is here today, and of course we'll be discussing very important aspects of regional cooperation tomorrow. But I want your take in terms of what you think can be Pakistan's main stance when we talk about many of these issues, and the role that it can play in terms of being that leader of regional support and collaboration, because a lot of the connectivity, especially on the economic front that we also talk about, is via Pakistan as well, and Pakistan of course enjoys healthy relationship with many of the member states. And I want your take on what exactly will be the way forward for Pakistan in particular, what we're looking to achieve as part of this summit.
Yes, and obviously when we talk about Pakistan's geostrategic locationing, I mean, it not only for the regional countries but the whole world, it is very important, and we time and again it has been proven right that Pakistan is one of the most important countries when it comes to geostrategic location of Pakistan. And of course when we talk about China, China is a country that is booming in terms of economy. Its exports and imports, they are booming, and it was required by China to, of course, link itself. The quickest link was possible from Pakistan, and CPEC is already there. Connectivity is all about obviously SCO. SCO is all about connectivity, and when we talk about the premier example of connectivity is of course CPEC and BRI. And we are already seeing that Pakistan is in the second phase of the CPEC, and in that of course Pakistan is looking forward for special economic zones. They are going to be of course up and running in this phase, and we will be seeing that FDIs would be attracted to Pakistan, and there are many other avenues where Pakistan needs to work on, and of course with the contribution and assistance from the Iron Brothers, and as Farrukh always said, blood brothers, they are always there for Pakistan, and I think that collaboration would be there very soon. Importance of SCO, Sana, I was just thinking about it, that whenever SCO takes place, it's like more than half population of the world is of course their representation is in Islamabad right now. I mean, half of the population, more than the half of the population of the world.
About 40%.
It's a huge number, and it's more of a this SCO is like a representation of half of the world, I must say. And when it comes to, of course, Central Asian republics, we have very good relations. Pakistan has very good relations with all of them, and of course, we have been listening in recent past that CPEC is going to be connected with with Russia through Central Asian republics and through Afghanistan as well. And I think it is very important. There are many other issues. Earlier, of course, when I was listening to Colonel Shailendra, it was so good to hear him, and obviously he endorsed that this visit from Indian external minister, it was expected, and this is how it should be. I mean, differences apart, but when it comes to multilateralism and a forum like SCO, I think differences should be set aside, same like Pakistan did last time around. I mean, our foreign minister, he went all the way to Goa summit, and I think that's how it should be. The reciprocation should always be there, because SCO is a very important forum. And when we talk about climate change, when we talk about security issues, I mean, these are sort of issues which are common for India and Pakistan both, because we are sharing the air, we are sharing all of these climate change or global warming issues. These are shared by both of the countries. And I think I was going through news, and a few of the Indian journalists, they were claiming that, of course, bilateral interactions, they might not take place between both of the countries, but I was expecting that that should take place as well. Reason being, if we can't talk certain other issues related to, of course, long-standing issues like bone of contention, Kashmir, and many other issues, then at least we can highlight the issues like TAPI, and we can highlight the issues like climate change and these kind of issues that are affecting the populations at large, masses at large of both of the countries. So I think it is very important to at least highlight these kind of issues so that SCO is more successful. It's already successful. I mean, I'm someone who's living in Islamabad, and I feel so proud right now that proud to be Pakistani, proud to be someone who's living in Islamabad, because we are having representation of half of the world in Pakistan right now. And I believe it would be a moment of further joy for me that if Pakistan and India can, of course, at least sit together for these kind of issues.
Absolutely, and we'll talk more about this, and Mr. Shailendra Singh, I'll come back to you for that. But before that, I want Farrukh's perspective on this as well. Farrukh, we've of course discussed just yesterday also, and we've been talking about the SCO Summit, and we're of course here today where we have these representatives of the member states here, the prime ministers of different states here as well, and it's going to be a very important discussion, of course, as the Prime Minister chairs it tomorrow. And I want your take in terms of the key agenda points and aspects that are important to cover. Of course, we talk about regional cooperation, but there is of course the aspect of making sure that while we have the summit and while we are able to discuss many aspects of what is going on and what can possibly be done in the future, how are we also going to ensure that after the summit is over, there's also implementation, there are also tangible action points and steps that all of the governments and member states can actually take, and of course particularly Pakistan's role in this regard?
Right, Sana, thank you very much for the opportunity and the question. But before I actually talk about the agenda points, I just wanted to highlight some very important aspects. And I wanted to actually contextualize the whole thing, because when you talk about all these issues, one has to actually look at what is happening in the world, right? And in order to start somewhere, one has to start from what SCO is not, right? And especially because at this moment, when you talk about Western pundits, the policy wonks that are there, they are usually old hands in international relations. And there is a problem with this discipline, that it has always been failing, right? So far, whatever we have seen is that the generation of terminology, the way that was there, is informed by the past, not by the present. And my problem is that at this moment we are in a very unique state of affairs and unique times, so to speak. AI is coming, it is going to displace most of the jobs within 10, 15 years. Similarly, Wall Street Journal recently, shared a video on designer babies that has already started in the West. So the entire human civilization, Sana, is going to be revolutionized and changed substantially. And at that moment, what are the policy bonks doing? They are trying to see everything through the prism of Cold War. My concern right now is that the kind of threats that we are facing right now, and they are so existential, that at this moment the entirety of human civilization should be working together in tandem to work out a solution to all those problems. May it be climate change, may it be something else. So SCO itself as a body that represents a little less than 50% of human population, but so many resources, 2, 3 of the economic engines of the world. With that kind of body, I think we can work out many solutions. The biggest problem is, once again, politics. Every time we talk about these issues, politics somehow steps in and always creates disputes and controversies. For example, our focus on Indian foreign minister or minister of external affairs coming to Pakistan or not is one example that one has to look at. The way Indian media would actually tackle it, the way Pakistani media would tackle this. Otherwise, SCO's purpose is so broad and so effective and so good that it should be able to help every country in this region, in this block, so to speak. Although I don't mean it is block politics, I mean all the countries that are within SCO. So the cooperation can continue despite our differences, and we don't have to view everything through a political partisan. At this moment, poverty, hunger, war, and as I pointed out, existential issues like climate change, they are going to dominate our future, and terrorism also. So why not actually focus on that? SEO has an element, a component to focus on all these issues, right? And by the way, because Colonel Shailendra Singh actually started with a very kind statement, I should also say that it is part of diplomacy that you continue with trash talk till the time diplomacy doesn't begin. But the moment there is a visit, when there is a guest in town, you immediately actually express your cordiality. You become very cordial. So I'm very cordial at this moment, and I was surprised to see the body language of the Indian foreign minister. I haven't seen him this cordial in the past. So I'm very happy that there seems to be a good message that there is a connectivity or some kind of empathy developing between all these countries. And I must share also that every act of cordiality will be reciprocated, Sana.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that is important. And I understand, of course, Farrukh, the point, of course, that you were also making in terms of the SEO being much larger than just Pakistan and India. But Shailendra Singh, I want your perspective on this aspect as well, and of course, as part of the discussion, when we talk about, of course, what this relationship holds, I understand, of course, that there are issues and concerns that have been there between the two countries. But if we talk about this particular summit and the potential and the possibilities that it holds, they are of course much larger in terms of just a bilateral engagement, but of course on a much larger and regional parameter. But I want your perspective on the fact that when we talk about this engagement, what aspects can we look at in terms of possible discussions that can help this particular relationship, albeit indirectly? I understand it's not a bilateral summit, there will not be bilateral commitments or engagements done, but as part of the multilateral platform, what aspects of this region collaboration can actually help and foster Pakistan and India's relationship as well, particularly in terms of cooperation on things that impact all of us, such as environment, such as security, such as economy? What do you think can possibly happen, maybe in an indirect way, that can help this relationship?
Why indirect way? Let's talk direct way. You and me are the public of both the countries. We are the best judge how to evaluate what is going on. We are asking about what better can happen or what better has happened as far as bilateral is concerned. I will tell you, the foreign minister is there in Pakistan. This is our bilateral relation. Pakistan Prime Minister, the way he has shook hands with the foreign minister is bilateral. It is much more bilateral. Look at that body language of Shahbaz Saab. The way he has taken that one step ahead means what? That Pakistan is prepared to go ahead. The foreign minister of India is present on that with a pleasant look on him, is bilateral. Why are we looking for? You are talking about representation. I take it like this. Out of the 10 countries who are the member, whosoever does not attend, it is his bad luck. He has been left out. If at all somebody would have not come. So why will India not take part in such a event taking place? So what, Pakistan? We are not that kind of enemy that we can't even land at each other's land. No, it is not like that. We are talking about bilateral. You tell me today, is it not bilateral that in a sitting of 10 people, there is one from India? Why are we not looking at that as bilateral? We are on the same table, we are on the same chair, looking at each other, meeting each other eye to eye, Shaking hands, is it not bilateral? I will even say coexistence. Coexistence will only come once we look at each other's eye. Agar hamare mein se, if anyone out of us would have not come, what is bilateral? Let Raja or Farrukh come and talk with me. Is it not bilateral? You are Sana inviting India to your show. Is it not bilateral? I can take you 10 places where we are bilaterally very strong. Culture, every damn thing, we are together. Yes, we had difference, doesn't make difference. This is not the time to evaluate difference. If two countries, Pakistan and India, can be together on a table which is deciding what is going to happen in region and
Shailendra ji,
world,
I absolutely agree with you on that front, and I'm actually making the same point. I want to understand then, as part of what we're of course referring, what you're referring to as bilateral, I agree that that relationship and that commitment, that engagement is there, and we all saw it. But I want your perspective on what sort of discussions can actually take part as part of the multilateral engagement that we see in the SCO that can then result in a more direct, more bilateral transformation, perhaps even after the SCO Summit. Do you think that that's a possibility?
Oh yes, 100%. There is always possibility, because when you don't have hope, then there is no possibility. I have hope that we can both talk about environment, we can talk about culture, we can talk about economy, we can talk about development, not only development for your and my country, but even for the world around. We can even talk about the security. So what if on security you and me cannot agree as a country to country against each other, but we can talk of security for the region. We can talk of reducing tension in the region. We can talk of 100 more things where India can, and I'm very sure India will, because it is not the result of only this particular meeting that everything gets decided. This will set the tone. This will set the highway that yes, from here onwards, can we go ahead? And yes, we should hope for it. We can go ahead. These are not the 2 days where everything bilaterally can be decided between both the countries. We have had a very long time of differences. Let us wait and see and improve on this beginning which has been made in previous SCO and this SCO.
Absolutely. And Shailendra Sahab, I want your perspective also in terms of building upon what has been done in the previous summit. We saw an enhancement of a very important structure as part of the SCO, which is RADS, and it of course deals with anti-terrorism. It's extremely important in terms of security, as you just mentioned, where we can actually collaborate, and especially in terms of the region, this is something that affects us all. I want your perspective in what role India can possibly play as part of this structure. This was enhanced last year. We're looking, of course, towards increased enhancement, increased cooperation through this structure. What role can India play, and what sort of a perspective do you have on the way that this structure can evolve and help all member states?
Whenever a host country organizes an event, the success is straight away dependent on the joint declaration at the end of it. If you are able to achieve it and all the member states are signing it, it's a very, very big achievement. I think Delhi did that. I am hoping for a similar one in Pakistan. When whatever Pakistan decides as part of the joint declaration, India agrees to sign. It doesn't protest. That is the best part of any kind of agreements which can make a beginning. Because you see, if a joint declaration is done at the end of the event and India is party to it, obviously, if there is a word called as anti-terrorism, that means both the countries bilaterally also agree that we will fight terrorism. If it comes to economy development, we agree to economy development. If a particular point is deleted, that means we both don't agree and we are open about it. So I don't find actually much problem in such events, but I look for a better thing, that how do we make this beginning to prosper in near future.
Absolutely. Ms. Zoon, I want your perspective on this too, because you said that you've been covering SCO very closely as well, and you understand this particular organization. And so I want your perspective particularly on RATS and this structure that is very relevant to Pakistan. It's relevant to all the member states as well in terms of regional cooperation on something that affects us all. But in terms of a collective response and in terms of cooperation on this front, what more can be achieved from this particular structure, and what sort of a collaboration avenue are you looking at when we talk about anti-terrorism efforts in the region?
Sana, an important question. I think a very important discussion that Colonel just led as well. I'll quickly add to the Pakistan-India equation aspect of the SCO, which is I think integral. South Asia is actually over 1/5 of the world's population and the least integrated region in the world. We are the only region, without a functional organization that connects all countries. SARC has not been functional for many years, and it is unfortunate. It is something that all countries collectively should take responsibility for. That said, the SCO is creating that common space. The fact that right now the Indian External Affairs Minister, Mr. Jaishankar, is in Pakistan, that Bilal Bhutto did go to Goa. The fact that not only every year once, but multiple times, we find that common denominator, multiple common denominators, which are about, anything we ratify, anything we sign under the SCO, it is a consensus-based organization in the end. So that means whether we talk about the 25 plus documents ratified in the Astana Declaration, whether you talk about the joint declaration last year in India Summit, every few months there are agreements that India, Pakistan both are agreeing to alongside other member countries. So the fact that the SCO exists, the fact that the SCO is that common platform is gradually, hopefully, going to expand the degree to which we can work together in a more practical way. And I think, let's talk about moving forward. I mean, not just between India and Pakistan, but other countries in the region, in the SCO region. We need to improve trade. We need to talk about human security. We need to talk about food security, climate change. There are multiple conversations that the SCO is having, how to engage our youth in a more effective way. This is something that we have closely been able to work with the SCO Secretariat with as well in the past years. So the fact that multilateral platforms exist actually is not just that they are single-handedly going to enable the entire region as a monolith to move forward, but they are creating also seeds of cooperation and a mutual, a mindset of mutual growth within the member countries. And the member countries' political will and capacity is going to propel the organization forward. So it's a mutual process. The SCO Secretariat and that platform is feeding also individual member countries, which are then making the SCO stronger. So both have to work side by side. That said, your question about RAT's expansion, I think, of course, many members in the SCO, we know that initially also the logic of the foundation of the SCO was security challenges in the Central Asian region. So the Shanghai Five was actually a response to border disputes that these countries had, and they realized we prosper or perish together. So we have to address these disputes right away, because if we do not, our region will be held back. And then the Shanghai Five, which was formed in 1996, resulted in the SCO, and Uzbekistan was also called, and that's how the organization was born. So security challenges were the premise to even conceive the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. That's where we have to remind ourselves that the challenges right now, we know that Pakistan, India have misunderstandings, and because of that, an almost a negligible economic relationship. We know that China and India also recently, especially since 2020, there was an escalation. These misunderstandings and challenges exist, but the SCO should be there to create space to figure out where can we cooperate. So RAC's mechanism, the fact that it has been able to expand despite these complicated equations. And let's also additionally say that one of the biggest headlines in the last 2 years for the SCO has been the dialogue partners, now countries in the Middle East, countries in Africa, countries in East Asia. Globally, there is a deep interest, even some countries much further are interested in being part of the SCO. So the fact that the organization is focusing on a multitude of issues, and what RATS can lastly specifically do is help us understand, there are many, like telecommunication fraud, there's drugs related crimes. There are ways in which we can make our cities safer as well. There are obviously networks of organizations that harm all of us. So the logic of the SCO is that the three evil forces are hurting all of us collectively, and we have to not fight each other, but we have to address these. So the expansion of RATS is gradually increasing the degree to which we realize the security threats you face are mutual. And I think this is a positive step forward.
Right, absolutely. It definitely is. There definitely is a positive engagement. But I also want then to take a broader look at this platform in itself. You talked about the Shanghai Five, and we've seen that a lot of those border disputes were actually resolved more positively, more or less to some extent, through the SCO Summit. And I understand that that was largely something that we can credit the SCO for. But fast track to today and the evolution in the kind of world that we live in the kind of major players that are, of course, part of this particular platform. I want your take on what then helps in terms of action and implementation of whatever is agreed upon. I understand there's consensus when there's a joint declaration signed. I understand that these are collective concerns of the region. But what is really driving implementation? Where is the check and balance in terms of whether that is being agreed upon is actually being done also? Do you think that bilateral aspects or political aspects or economic aspects don't come in the way, and what is a way to actually overcome that and remember that collective response will be better for all?
I think, Sana, it's true that each individual country has a national focus agenda. Then they have to operate within the region that they exist, and then there are global players that they have to work with. And that is all culminating in, the individual strategies that each country is going to employ. Within the SCO, we have conversations on different analyses, political analyses, that this country is less active or this country is more active, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I mean, there is no one logic that is dictating each and every country's degree of participation or compliance, if we really want to put it that way. Even can we say that the SCO Business Council has a certain mandate, and what percentage of that has been achieved? These are numbers, these are specifics that, let me tell you, whether you talk EU, ASEAN, the African Union, Arab League, I mean, any multilateral or intergovernmental organization will have degrees to which they can pursue those goals. That said, what are the motivations? I think for Central Asian countries, for Russia, China, I mean, this is an integral organization. I wouldn't say the SCO resulted in the dispute resolutions. The SCO was a motivation to resolve those disputes. It was a prerequisite in a way. Now, with the RATS mechanism expansion, I think all countries, to some extent, we also mistrust the countries with challenges. Obviously, Pakistan and India, this applies. We mistrust each other's intention to some extent, to a great extent in some scenarios. But at the same time, we realize that if we can cooperate on tackling a certain kind of crime together, and we have the safety, security of an organization where everyone is looking at each other and nobody wants to be seen as a bad player, we will feel safer to step into a zone where we can cooperate together, right? So there seems to be a mechanism, there are eyes watching that are ensuring that countries are compliant and they don't break certain rules that have been established within the organization. So I think not being seen as a bad player by an organization, which, as so many of us have already said, represents almost 50% of the world's population and has increasing, has increasing capacity to be seen as important and to become like the future ASEAN, for example. That is, I think, a big enough motivation for individual countries to comply. And we want solutions that are efficient. We want more connectivity. We want more jobs. We want more development. We want to tackle climate change with fewer resources, being expended at our own expense by us as individual countries. If there can be a collaborative environment in the region, no country will say no to that. Provided we trust the mechanism. So I think the SCO's reputation within the member states is a big motivation.
Right. Thank you very much, Ms. Zoon Khan, for joining us, and Colonel Shailendra Singh for joining us. Always a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you very much for discussing this very important summit with us and for sharing your insights. Farrukh, I'd like to build upon what Ms. Zoon just talked about. Not being looked at as a bad player will be motivation enough. And I want your perspective, whether you agree on that or not, whether that's actual motivation enough for any country on any platform to act according to what is being agreed upon or what the consensus is.
Right. Let me actually connect, Sana, what was said by Zoon, and connect it with what Colonel Saab was earlier saying, because it is quite interesting, right? The biggest problem so far when we look at it is not lack of consensus, right? The problem for India and Pakistan, particularly their hawks, is that they have been doing their vicious things to various bodies like SARC and others, but here they can't actually do it. Why can't they do it? Because we all know that when Shanghai 5 was created, at that time India and Pakistan were not even thought to be included, right? Pakistan and India have joined the organization as plus one of somebody else. Pakistan joined at the recommendation of China, and India at the recommendation of Russia. And these two countries, Russia and China, are essentially the engines of this body. In India, they call various governments double engine ki sarkar. So here, the double engine is Russia and China. So of course, when you are there as a plus one, can you really think of sabotaging the body or their functioning? You can't, and especially because the agenda is essentially set that these two big ones, and of course Pakistan, India, other countries can contribute to that. Having said that, earlier you were talking about rats, and I was thinking that there was a mechanism between various countries that continued for quite some time. For example, there was a bilateral dialogue between India and Pakistan during Vajpayee's time, and then it was resuscitated by the Congress Party Manmohan Singh government's time also. And at that time, both sides, especially when you talk about Mumbai, they had a very interesting framework to tackle terrorism. But what happened? The moment something bad happens, everything derails, right? So you have to appreciate the fact that we will have to build on whatever we have got, and we'll have to be conservative about hopes.
Absolutely, and of course this is going to be an important discussion that will continue. Faisal, quickly, if you want to add something, we'll be here for another hour though, but quickly go ahead.
Sana, I really love the way Farrukh put it forward. It's just like, if we go into friend's party, our younger cousin, we tell him that you can join us, but you have to behave. This is what it is more like.
Right.
I just wanted to comment about,
Yes.
Colonel Shailendra earlier. The way he was so enthusiastic about things, I think that was heartening to see. And if he was still serving the Indian Army, I would have recommended him for ADGPI of Indian Army, because he was very diplomatic.
Right, he's a fair-minded guy, and we're glad to have him on the
Exactly.
show. And of course, we're glad to see that the SCO Summit is going to be very important an integral part of what we, of course, hope to aspire in terms of regional cooperation. And we'll be seeing that tomorrow. And of course, we see that already in terms of the participation by various countries, including, of course, very important participations by Russia, China, and India, and many others. And so we're going to be taking a look at what this means and what the future holds, and we'll be here to discuss that for another hour, but we'll take a short break for a headlines break, and then we'll be back.